All right. So next, let's talk to Jasmine. Jasmine is calling to talk about religion and medicine, I think, or faith healing, or religion and COVID vaccine. We've got quite a range there, Jasmine. What do you feel like talking about today?
Well, I was gonna leave it up to the host what interests you of those three. I'm willing to speak about all three.
Sure. I guess why don't we start with the first thing? What are you thinking about with respect to religion and medicine?
Well, I find just religion and medicine very, very tangled. I mean, you're a doctor, you would know it's. And all the doctors I've worked for have been generally very religious. I mean, there are exceptions, of course, but I don't know. I find it's something that's very difficult to navigate, and I get a lot of different opinions from a lot of different people. And even the studies there's some that are pro, there are some that are inconclusive, and there's some that are negative with regards to things like religion and religious-based treatments. So I find it so very tangled, and I'm not sure how to navigate.
What sort of religious-based treatments are you thinking about?
Well, prayer, faith healings, that kind of thing, reciting passages from various holy books.
And you're saying that you've had doctors, I see you're in Canada, which is also where I am. Have you had doctors doing prayer as a method of treatment in Canada, in a hospital?
No, not specifically. Though I do know of, like, I came across a study, approximately 40%-ish.
Jasmine, still there? We may have lost Jasmine. She sort of just cut out there. I'm going to put her back in the queue, and maybe our friends behind the scenes can see if she can reconnect, but we'll see. Anyways, for anyone out there watching, if you want to step in on this conversation, you can call us at 512-991-9242. Call now. We have some open lines. But Adam, what do you think about what Jasmine was saying about this confluence between religion and medicine? Do you see that?
I do. I didn't expect it to be apparent in countries like Canada, US, Australia, but I certainly have seen lots of examples of these. In fact, being a Coptic Orthodox myself, until very recently, maybe about 20 years ago, there was a specific prayer in the Coptic Orthodox Church called a Boturbo prayer, which is for the healing of a dog bite. So if a person
That's very specific.
Yeah. If a person is being bit by a dog or bitten by a dog bite usually is infectious, and you're supposed to go and get some injections. But people would take their kid, or even adults go to the church, and they have this very paganistic ritual where they get 7 little kids below 7 years old holding candles and going in circles around you. It's kind of like witchcraft sort of thing. And that is supposed to heal you from the dog bite.
Wow.
But I think in the last 20 years, the church has banned this prayer, and they say it is so unorthodox, and don't know how it leaked into our church. But if you got bitten by a dog, please go and take the injection shot. So I'm glad they came to that point after all.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm very curious to see, if Jasmine calls back in, because I live and work in Canada, and I have never seen any type of sort of faith healing or religious-based religious-based medicine, I would say, practiced in reality. Now, with that said, there are some issues, at least where I work, with Catholic-based hospitals, Roman Catholic-based hospitals, and they are sort of like run by nuns and other like Catholic higher power people, I guess. I don't know, and higher ups, and it mostly doesn't affect day-to-day practice. It's a little bit weird to be working, in a place where you have to walk by like a statue of the Virgin Mary every day, sort of thing, in the halls, or like where there's crosses above every doorway. But the biggest area where I think this comes into conflict that I've observed is some of these hospitals don't offer certain types of care that would be against like Catholic teaching, and the biggest one is like abortion. So a lot of these hospitals won't provide abortion services and potentially even certain birth control services, and instead they will like find a way around it by referring the patient to some other institution, which I obviously have problems with as a atheist physician working in these hospitals. But like I said, I've never really seen people doing prayer circles or anything like that as a means of trying to cure a disease in a person,
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Let me play the devil's advocate here for a second, because you said
Sure.
you may have some issue around having a statue of Virgin Mary or crosses everywhere in the hospital, but isn't it scientifically proven, and take what I say with a grain of salt, that
Devil's advocate,
positive psychology and positive feelings is very important for your healing process. Even
Sure.
as an atheist, you might think that it's your internal body healing itself. There is no external force or external power. But for believers in this hospital, if someone is choosing to go to a Roman Catholic hospital, assuming that they are Roman Catholic themselves, or at least Christians, don't you think that these things actually help them maintain a positive state, which is also essential for their healing process? Thus, it's a positive thing, not a negative thing.
Yeah, it's a good question. So I think that essential, no. Helpful, potentially. But I also think that the problem is that, as I'm sure you know, with Coptic Christianity, I think they are similarly strict to Roman Catholic. I was raised Roman Catholic for like 18 years or so. They're very, very strict and specific, and there's a lot of guilt involved. And so I think maybe a certain subset of Christians will identify with the Roman Catholic iconography and values and all this thing, and it will come across as a positive situation. But like, I also live in one of the most multicultural cities in the world, and there's a lot of non-Roman Catholics who come to the hospital, right? The majority of people who come to the hospital are not Roman Catholic. And I think it's just not very nice to cater to such a narrow audience. So that's what I would say. But I totally agree with you that I think that, making a healing environment, a positive psychology for these patients is very important. And I just think that we need to tailor it a little bit more. And I think that it's a lot easier to do that in a more secular space where it's not literally built into the pillars holding up the building sort of thing. If you want a cross in your room, then sure, we'll bring you a cross and we'll take it out when you get discharged sort of thing. And the next guy can get whatever other religious iconography he wants.
Yeah.
All right. It looks like Jasmine has called back. So let's take Jasmine. Jasmine, are you back?
Yes. Yes.
Great.
Sorry about that.
No problem. So I think you were telling us about your experiences with sort of faith healing in Canada in some of these hospitals. Can you tell us what you've experienced?
Well, my specific experiences,
Or
I've
what
seen
you've
people
heard
praying,
or
but
whatever.
not doctors. It's more, well, with regards to specifically religious practices, mostly with the native, like smudging and that kind of thing, and singing and drumming, as well as, again, Christian. I haven't seen specifically MDs praying, but I've seen so sometimes the support workers will do that. I've seen that's specifically what I've seen. And again, the doctors I've worked for have tended to be quite religious. I've had a lot of doctors from a lot of Muslim countries come, and so they tend to be religious too.
Sure. Do you think that what do you think that what do you think that the religiosity of the physicians does to their practice, the way they practice medicine?
Well, honestly, I wouldn't say it's independent, but I think if you have two people aligned with the same kind of belief system, perhaps it maybe enhances a little. I'm not entirely sure, but that's my thought.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I'm sort of getting from what you're telling me is that there's a lot of different types of people, and some of those people become doctors, and so there's a lot of different types of doctors. One of my teachers in medical school once said that saying you're a doctor is like saying you own a car. It doesn't actually tell you anything at all about the person, because there's people who drive pickup trucks, and there's people who drive Toyota Priuses, and there's people who drive transport trucks, and these are all very different people. It doesn't really tell you anything. And I think the same thing goes for MDs. There's Christian MDs, and there's atheist MDs, and there's Muslim MDs, and there's Sikh MDs, and Hindu, and I'm speaking about, not in abstract, about physicians that I know. I know a Coptic Christian MD. I know Muslim MDs. I know all of these people. And the thing that I think is most important, at least in my experience, is that they don't try to treat the patient or cure disease using their religion, right? They sort of separate them in their mind. When someone comes in with an infection, they don't pray. They reach for the antibiotics, right?
Yeah, I would hope.
Right. So what's your concern about them about medicine and religion being tangled up, you said?
Well, again, I'm questioning my own beliefs, and I used to be very religious. We're talking hours, Christianity previously, and we're talking at least an hour before I go to work, and at least an hour or two after. And I always sort of tangled religion and healing and the whole group together, and it's kind of I'm just trying to work through these things in my mind, basically. And like I said, I've gotten so many different opinions. I talked to actually one of your other hosts, Erin, and she was very extremely vehement against faith healing, in fact.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess that's what I'm asking, but nothing that you have mentioned to me so far today, to me, reads as faith healing, right? To me, faith healing is when, someone has a problem, a health problem, and instead of going to a doctor or a nurse or a hospital, they instead go to see their priest or their rabbi or whatever, and then the priest or rabbi does something to them. Is that the faith healing that you're talking about, Jasmine?
In part, I mean, I actually am in training for, I don't want to say specifically, but an alternative health field. And so that's why the faith healing, the placebo effect is something of interest, especially since it's an alternative health field.
So do you think
I don't want to go too much into what it is.
That's okay. Do you think that faith healing only works using the placebo effect?
Well, right now, yes, I'd say yes. Previously, probably not. I would have thought maybe prayer would somehow amplify things, but I think it's mostly placebo, if not totally.
Oh, so what do you think that means? What does that mean about prayer as like an intervention?
Well, to me, if you're trying to promote placebo effect, you've got to try to so be as sincere as possible. So again, if your beliefs align with your client or your patient, whatever, all the better. If they, if they don't, they don't. But again, especially rural areas, I find are very, very religious, and it's so hard to escape.
Who's religious?
The rural areas. I work in a lot of. I worked in a lot of the rural areas, and you just kind of escape, especially Christianity, in the rural areas.
Oh, I see. Rural areas. I see. Yeah, I mean that's fair. What do you think, Adam? What's going on in your head right now?
I am not sure. I was thinking that yes, I was reading faith healing in the same way that you were saying, as in when someone goes to a priest or a rabbi or someone and they intervene, but I haven't seen much of being religious yourself or going to a religious doctor, that you're kind of both on the same page, but at the same time, if it doesn't interfere with your actual prescriptions and examinations and diagnoses, then there is no problem of you being the patient or the doctor that you're going to being religious and even speaking religious language in the examination room. That's not interfering with the actual diagnosis and what's prescribed to you at the end. So it might be an issue of personally, when I left the faith, and if I would go to a doctor with any problem and the doctor says, well, you just need to pray a little bit more and just ask God for healing. But at the end of the day, if he gives me a prescription that I can take to the pharmacy and get XYZ, then okay, I will pray. I would take it with a grain of salt, but I wouldn't call that faith healing, because I got a proper medical scientific prescription treatment. After all, if that makes any sense. Yeah, treatment.
Yeah, it's interesting, Jasmine, that you say that you think that faith healing is a purely placebo effect, because usually when we're doing like a scientific study to see if a treatment is effective, we use placebo as the sort of like negative control group, right? We say, well, we know, like basically the definition of the placebo effect is that it doesn't actually have any healing properties of its own. It could be anything that just makes the person feel like they're being healed. And so for that reason, I think a lot of, I was certainly surprised when you said you think that faith healing is a purely placebo effect. And, but you still think that it's like, it sounds like you think that it's like a thing that should be done. To me, I think that if you are someone who is selling a placebo and it's a placebo, that means that you're selling something, you're taking someone's money when you know that the thing that you're selling them doesn't actually do anything. You're basically just tricking them into thinking that it's going to help when it doesn't actually help. What do you think of that, Jasmine?
Well, couldn't you say a bit that even about religion, technically? I mean, placebo effects, mine does have some ability to heal the body, but the alternative medicine is very different from traditional Western and what you're trying to do for people. I don't think it's simply taking people's money. I think it's a different way of addressing the problem, maybe.
Interesting. I mean, I think this is a big discussion we can have on just like the philosophy of alternative medicines here. So like, what do you think that we need to get from alternative medicine that we don't get from Western medicine?
Well, in Western medicine, I find it's very, and it should be, it's very scientific based. You need all the, all the lab tests, all the diagnostics, all the pharmacology, all of that. But from what I hear from people sort of generally is that, that more personal effect from alternative medicine as opposed to the more, I hesitate to use this word, but the more sort of factory, sort of more less personal touch maybe that Western medicine can afford.
Yeah, I get you. Do you think that has something to do with the actual thing that Western medicine is doing or that alternative medicine is doing? Or do you think it's more the way that we're doing it? Like, do you think, I guess if I were to put it another way, do you think if we could have 5 times as many doctors as we do now, so that the doctors could have, instead of 5 to 10 minutes to see you in the clinic, they could have half an hour to 45 minutes to talk to you in the clinic? Do you think that would achieve the same goal?
Yeah, I would say, but again, getting that amount of professionals is would be difficult in any system.
I agree. But I'm just saying, like, to me, these alternative medicines, including faith healing, are, they're not actually adding anything real. They're just adding basically someone to talk to a little bit more. And I totally agree that like sometimes that's what people need, right? Sometimes you just need someone to talk to you about your problems, and the act of talking about it makes you feel better. But I think that it's a mistake to conclude from that there's something that these alternative medical practitioners and these faith healers are doing that's actually helping the patient in a way that is genuine, as opposed to something that's sort of just a social benefit. I don't know. What do you think, Adam? What do you think about alternative medicines, I guess?
I always struggled with this, to be honest. Well, from a philosophical perspective, I always struggled with the idea of placebo, because if you come in pain and if I give you a sugar tablet that doesn't have any active ingredients in it, but at the end of the day it kills your pain, isn't that a painkiller? Yeah, maybe you and we know that there is no active ingredient in it, but as far as I'm concerned, if it did kill the pain of the patient, that was in a way the purpose after all. And from that point, because I struggled with that concept a bit, when I also looked at alternative medicines, that maybe it's not backed up by research or results that you can replicate every time. But if people are benefiting from it, even if we're talking about certain individuals, I don't know. I don't know how to categorize them. But yeah, I myself struggled with that concept of alternative medicine and placebo.
Very interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's a very good point, right? Because placebos are helpful, right? That's like part of their definition is that they do potentially make someone feel better, even though there is no active ingredient. And I think that the key is that you're right. If we compare it to like getting nothing at all versus getting a sugar pill, does the sugar pill make them feel better? If yes, then hey, then you're getting some treatment, right? And you could say, well, that's a painkiller. So yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting topic. I think that this would be a great thing to dive into in more detail. But Jasmine, I think we need to let you go. But thank you very much for calling in.
Okay.
Very interesting discussion. And feel free to call again in the future, and we can chat about some more of this sort of thing.